Hey, Christy, and welcome. This is Paul Anderson. I'm going to give you a little podcast on how to set up your Moodle class. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to keep it short. Remember, you can pause the video, and so if you don't understand how something works, make sure you go back and check it out again. First thing I've done is typed in montanateaching.org at the top. After you go there, you're going to be presented. Let's try that out. So after you go to montanateaching.org, you should be represented with this page right here. You're not logged in yet, and so let's click on login at the top. It shows you the class is over here on the side, but we have to get logged in. So let's do that first. So I'm going to click on that. You're next going to type in your name. So let me do that. And then you're going to use that password that I sent you to log in. And I'm not going to have it remember that. Okay, so now you're logged in. It shows you your name right over here. If you click on that name, then you can do stuff like change it. You can change the password. You can change the picture. You can edit all of that stuff. But I don't want to do that. You can do that. This is something that you should get used to using if you want to use Moodle a lot. If I click on Montana Teaching, it's just going to take me back to that screen where I was. And so those will kind of build up, and it's an easy way to get back to where you were before. Okay, so you're actually enrolled in two classes. You're enrolled in the Springtime in the Rockies, and there was a little bit of a discussion going on here. And then, again, let me click on this and go back for a second. And you're also enrolled in this, which is your class. So if we click on that and get inside, it's pretty boring. So there's not really anything right here. I've added participants, the ones that you sent me, and so those are all listed right here. And so none of them have gotten on. And so let's go back. Okay, so this is your class. You can do a lot of stuff on here that students can't do, but the only one that you really want to start playing around with over here is to turn the editing on. And so this is what it would look like when the kids get on, but if we turn editing on, now I get all these new things that show up. And so I can edit anything over on the side. And so for example, if I want to add a calendar, if I want to add a blog, if I want to add anything, I can do that over on the side. I can move things. So if I want to move latest news, and so that goes down here, I can just swap it like that. Or if I want to move it up, then I can just move it up. So I can really kind of make it look the way that I want to. The two big things that you can change are right here. This is add a resource. If you want to add something to your Moodle page that is static, in other words, it doesn't change very much, again, I had to first click turn editing on, and then we can just add a resource. And so the big ones that I use are this one to insert a label, and then this one to make a link to a file or website. Those are the big ones that I use. And so let's try inserting a label. So we'll do that. And this is what pretty much every Moodle dialog is going to look like. You're going to add something, you're going to make the changes, and then make sure when you get to the bottom that you click on Save and Return to Course. And so let's say we want to name this. Let's call it 7th grade science. And we could like center it, and we could make it bold, and we could make it, let's make it blue, for example. And then I can go down to the bottom and click on Save and Return to Course, and it's going to show up right there. Now maybe that's not big enough. Maybe I want it to be a little bit bigger, so I can just go back to here. If I want to delete it, I'd hit the X, and if I want to edit it, then I'll hit that little hand. And notice as I kind of roll over each one, it shows me what it does. And so let me go back and update that or change it. So it brings me back to the same dialog. And maybe I want to make this really big. So we'll make it a big heading, and then I could return to the course. And this is what your class looks like now. And so if I click turn editing off, then this is what the students would actually see. And so hopefully that makes sense. You can put whatever you want. We could put pictures here, we can do whatever, but it's going to kind of link it up, and so it looks like that. So let me show you how to make some other things. Let's say we want to put like a web link, for example. So maybe we could go down to this next block, and we're going to put a link to a file and or a website. And so maybe over here I found, so in a different tab, I found this really cool video of like cells and how cells move. This is a cool animation of how that works. And so if I want that, for example, for my kids to see, then I can simply just select this, and I'm going to copy that address. Now I go back over to here, and then I can put in a name for that. And so we could call this the cells video. And we could describe it like a cool animation of cells. And then I can just paste that address in that I copied a second ago, and we can put that right down in here. Okay, now it puts that in, and if I turn editing off right here, now we've got a quick link to that. And so I could click on that. Let's see if that works. And it's going to bring me to that same video that I was just at a second ago. So let me go back for a second. So that seems to work. Another cool thing you can do up here is you can switch your role. And so I could change from being a teacher to a student. And what that allows me to do is make sure that everything's actually working as a student. In other words, if you set up something like a wiki, you want to make sure that it works for them. So you could do that. So big cool things that I would do, let me turn editing on again, is that when I've done this in the classroom, the things that really kids love a ton is adding a chat room. So you can add a chat room. That way when they log in, they can all get in there and kind of talk back and forth. And so you could do that here. Or we could add a forum. So that's where you can have like a linear discussion. They don't all have to be on at the same time, but you could add that. One thing I was excited about when we were at Montana Learning Center was a wiki. And so I'm going to show you how to add a wiki. So let me add a wiki right now, and we'll call this practice wiki, and we'll call this just practice. And then I go down to the bottom and click on save again, and now it's going to just throw a wiki into there. And so let me make sure this works as a student. So I'm going to switch back to student again, and I'm going to try out the wiki. And so I click on wiki, and it brings me into the wiki. And wikis work, they're pretty simple, but what you do is you add something in here. So we could call this 7th grade science wiki, and then maybe welcome. And then we could maybe have something on cell parts, for example. And then let me click it. And so when kids get in, then they're going to see this. So I just changed that, and it shows me what I did. Now, any student can then edit it. So if I click on edit, I can go back in and make changes to that. And so maybe parts of the cell, maybe one part of the cell is the nucleus. But I want to put, for example, brackets. And those have to be those square brackets around the outside. And maybe another part is like the mitochondria. And then I click on save again. And now we've got welcome cell parts, but there are these little question marks next to it. And so if a student clicks on nucleus, for example, that makes a brand new wiki page where they can say the nucleus contains DNA. So for example, like that. And now we've got a nucleus page signed out. And so let me go back again. So let's go back to that page right now. If we get into the wiki, so if a student's doing this, they could see, okay, cell parts, the nucleus. And then if I click on that, then nucleus contains DNA. If I don't like what's there, then I could click edit and I could make changes to it. And so you can kind of see how the wiki starts to grow. But you can do tons of stuff like add pictures, you can add sounds, you can add anything to it. So it's a really cool way for kids to kind of build a web page, but it's also controlled. In other words, you can always look at what they did, what changes they made, and then you can just make those changes back. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is return to your role as a teacher. I'm going to turn editing on, and then I'm going to delete everything I just did. And so it'll always ask you, are you sure you want to get rid of that? And I'm going to say yes. And let me get rid of the cells video as well. So I'm going to get rid of that. Yeah, I want to get rid of that. And then I'm going to get even rid of this where it said 7th grade science. I'm going to get rid of that as well. Yes. And so now if I go back to turn editing off again, there's your page. And so it starts out exactly with nothing on it. And so what I would do is get it the way you want it. And then I would get it set up before I actually have the kids come in and try it out. I'd love to hear how it goes. Best of luck, and see you later.